Hello friends, Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works Workshop. We have some repeat business today. This is not the kind of repeat business that's bad, it's the kind of repeat business that's good, meaning that it's nothing I screwed up or anything. The customer sent me a mandolin a while back to set up, and apparently he liked the setup and he asked me to do another setup on another mandolin. And this is another Tacoma. I believe the other one was a Tacoma as well. It's a Mr. Jones from Ohio. That's all I'll tell you. I figure that's vague enough that you'll never know who it is anyway. He said he just refinished the neck and sides on this mandolin. Now I was wondering why I feel a weird edge on here. It's like sharp. And I say sharp, I don't know if you can hear it. I don't know if it'll pick that up or not, but you can actually feel like a feather sharp edge around here. And I guess he had it taped off and the finish is sticking up proud in those places just slightly. So I've got some 600 grit sandpaper here, and I'm just going to at an angle very lightly, and I'm just touching the corner. I'm not letting it touch anything else, and I'm just going to see if we can't knock that edge off. And so that's what I'm doing here first. It's just hitting the corner. I'm not letting it come down on the sides or on the back, either one. And that already feels a lot better. This mandolin is in for a setup. He wants a professional setup. He's starting to apparently get into a little luthier work himself, but he didn't trust himself to do the setup on this yet. He's in the learning stages, and he wanted this one done right. He said there's not a lot of these mandolins out there, these Tacomas, and well, I'd have to probably agree because I don't see that many of them. Again, just trying to touch the edges. There's real sharp around this where it would be the scroll on another mandolin. The other reason I want to knock that off is because with that finish sticking up like that, as it dries, you could chip that off. So we don't want that finish sticking up like that on those edges. Otherwise, you'll end up knocking it right off and chipping out your finish. And his finish looks real good. He did a nice job on it. Got 99% of the back here. Let's check it over on the front side and see. We got a similar problem on the front side. Doesn't feel quite as bad on the front. Okay, I believe that'll do for that. Actually, I'm still feeling it back here on the backside scroll as I put my hand across there. It's still a little on the sharpness scale. Not bad though. It's certainly not like it was. It was really thin, sharp edge before. Now it's just kind of corner edge, if you will. It's a little different feeling. Right here I feel I can even hear it. So we want to make sure we don't have any of those that you can literally feel flopping up, as it will chip out the finish eventually. I also notice it along the ends of the frets up here, right on the edge of the fretboard, and we're just going to work on that a little bit. I wanted to point out the frets that are in this mandolin. I know a lot of people out there do like the large frets, but I got to tell you, these are beyond large. These are jumbo frets. These things are 100,000ths of an inch wide this way, which is 1/10 of an inch, and they're 50,000ths of an inch this way, so 1/20th of an inch that way. So they're gigantic frets. I mean, really big. So even when you do a real good low setup on this, it's still going to be a long ways down to the fretboard. If you understand what I'm saying. So if we leave 18 thousandths here, you've got 68 thousandths of an inch all the way down to the fretboard. Well, that's about 1/16th of an inch, roughly. That's quite a bit of gap between the strings and the fretboard. And even more when you consider you're pressing on the top of the string, so your finger is, you've got to add that extra 50 thousandths for the string or whatever it is, or well 40 thousandths in the mandolin's case, 40 thousandths. Then you've got, you know, the height of the fret, and then the height above the between the fret and the string. Can't get it all out, but anyway, my point is there's a lot of space between your finger and the fretboard, even when you get it set up really well. So I'm not a fan of these big frets. They really don't do it for me at all. But that's everybody's got their own thing, and that's what we're working with here, and that's what we'll set up. So we'll get started. Okay, I'm looking down the fretboard first, which is what I always do. I look right down the fretboard and I look and see what kind of issues we're starting off with. On this one, it appears to be pretty darn flat. I don't really see any issues. There's no real underbow or anything. Right up in here, I would say this fret, the first fret, might have just a tiny bit low spot right here at the on this bass side here, just a hair low compared to the rest of them. I can really see the very minute details in that. It's just something I've trained myself to do. And so that fret there looks like it's just a fraction of a hair low, and I'm talking in the thousandths. I hope I don't get the customer all uptight about this when he sees this video, but the neck is slightly crooked on this mandolin also. Now in this case, you know, flat, if it was laying flat like this, that would be great, but it's tilted ever so slightly to the bass side. The treble side is higher, if you will, in comparison to the body than the bass side. Now, how can I prove that? Let's just see if I can prove. I'm doing it by eye now, but let's look and see if we can prove it by measurement. And I don't know if we can or not. I truly don't. But here's a spot right here that I can check on the top of the fretboard. And if I just go down to the edge of the fretboard, we are at 427 thousandths. Now if I come around here on the same fret on this side, we're at 395 thousandths. So it's more than 50 thousandths, which is, you know, the height of one of these frets. It's off by that much. It's tilted this way by about 50 thousandths of an inch. Now I noticed that right off. I'm into looking at things like that when I look at instruments, and you can maybe see that. What you want to look at is look at how flat this is here. Get your eye trained to this flat plane, and then look at this peg head and see if the peg head is in the same plane as this, or if the peg head is tilted. And that's the first way you can tell. Also, you can tell just by looking how much space there is on this side versus how much space there is on this side. So I'll get the camera adjusted here and point this for you. Maybe you can see what I'm talking about. I'm gonna be looking at the camera trying to see if I can see it. I think you can already see it there. I'll try to get the body level to the camera, and then I tilt this down, and maybe you can see that the peg head might be a little crooked too. It's actually fairly easy to just see it in the height. You can tell this side here is lower than this side here is. I think that's the easiest way to see it on this. Plus you can kind of look at the tail piece compared to this and see that they're not in the same plane. So anyway, you know, those are just things I look at. Now, is that something we need to fix? It's got a bolt-on neck, so we could probably shim it and make it right. But if we do that, and I'm just talking out loud, if we do that, then you're going to have a gap on this side here. See, if we shim up this side, then, you know, in other words, the shims would have to come over here to twist it the right way. Now, the other problem that would stir up is I'm assuming this bridge has already been cut for this strange angle. And this is a one-off bridge. You just don't make one like this every day. I mean, it's not a simple bridge to make or duplicate. And I'm not into making and duplicating one of those if I don't have to. So, me personally, that angle doesn't bother me very much, because once you get it set up, you get used to playing it however it is, you know. But of course, as you know, some people, it drives them crazy knowing that there's something not quite right about their instrument. Is it going to change the sound much? Probably not. You know, it's not going to do that much to it. But I will contact the customer just to see if he wants, you know, if he's one of those guys that it's really going to bother. Because there are all kinds of people out there. As you know, we just got done fixing a crooked neck on that Kentucky slash Rosa mandolin that I built the top for. So anyway, it's not that uncommon to see a crooked neck, as I'm proving right here. I see it all the time. Take a look at yours. You probably are still playing a crooked one and you don't even know it. So we'll contact the customer and get back to you. Thought I'd explain how crooked it is another way also, so that you would understand a little better how much it's off. If I'm looking down the flat plane of the top here, and it is a flat top, and I line the flat plane up with this corner of the peg head, this corner of the peg head is about 1/4 of an inch higher than this. So in other words, this is level on this side is about 1/4 of an inch higher. So, I mean, even though it's only 50 thousandths when you measure it right here, by the time you twist it out here and this is wider, you know, it makes quite a bit of difference. And I say 1/4 inch, it might not be quite that much, but it's pretty close. It's pretty close. It's pretty close to 1/4 inch. I got the word back from the customer about the twisted neck or crooked neck, and he wants it fixed. He wants everything as close to perfect as we can make it on the mandolin. So we're going to do that. My only concern about twisting the neck back the way it should be a little bit is what will it do to the bridge. And I'm a little concerned about that because I definitely do not want to make one of those bridges. So as I do it, I'm going to be working closely with this bridge and trying to make sure that we can make it work. It's difficult to do that because about the only way you really can do it well is to have the strings on it. So, you know, you make an adjustment here, you put the strings on, you check it, take it all apart, you know, that would be a real pain. So I'm just going to try to do some measurements and things and try to keep those measurements fairly close or consistent while I straighten the neck. That's the best I've got to hope for here. So in order to do this, I'm taking a straight edge and I'm going to put it down the base edge of the fretboard. I'm just going to use the low-tech method here. Unfortunately, this ruler, the millimeters don't go to the end of the ruler, but it doesn't really matter. The end of the ruler is not going to change. It's about 9 millimeters. Now, it's actually further than that because the end of this ruler doesn't count, but I'm just counting the fact that it is at the 9th millimeter spot on the ruler. So it's right on the 9th millimeter. So on that side. On this side, it's right at 10 millimeters. So it's a little higher on this side. Now, you know, you would think it'd be higher than that because of the twist. I know absolutely for black and white sure there is a twist in that neck. There's no question about that. I don't think I can show it very well because it's got a radius fretboard. When I lay the ruler flat across the fretboard, as flat as I can get it, I would say that we're 5/16 off of the treble, off the bass side, and I would say we're 9/16 off of this side. So it's quite a bit of difference. So, you know, it's definitely crooked. There's no question about that. Transferring it from here to here in just this length, you know, a millimeter is all that's showing up. It's probably a hair more than a millimeter, but that's not much, but it is a difference. So anyway, we're going to take it apart here and see if we can do anything to straighten the neck up a little bit more. Okay, well, it definitely comes apart fairly easy. That part's not a problem. I think, you know, the ideal shim would be to make it the same shape as this. That would be the ideal shim. Can we make it ideal? I don't know. The problem with making it ideal is that I think it's going to raise the whole thing. and I don't really want to do that. Though if we do it, I have a way of dealing with this. I think that will be fine. I'm just going to stick it in there loose and see if it shows up that way loose. I'm just wondering if it could be the way the strings are adjusted. No, it's if you look at it here, there is a little twist in it. It appears to me that something's not perfectly flat. I'm thinking there might be another way to approach this, and that is that I might be able to flatten out this notch here a little bit, take a little bit out of the notch, which might be a better approach. Let me see if I can get these bolts out. That way we're not raising it much, and if anything we might have to cut a tiny amount off the feet of the bridge if we do it this way versus lifting it, which we would have to raise the bridge, and that would be very difficult. So I'm just going to look at it and see if it looks like it's flat. It looks real flat. I don't see a problem. It looks like it was routed with a router, and therefore it's pretty flat. So more than likely it's on the neck side. Let's see if we can measure the thickness of the neck and see if we see a difference there. There's got to be a difference somewhere here. I'm going to do it back here. This is of course with the fretboard on it, which isn't necessarily the way I would like to do it, but it's the only way I can do it right now. Alright, so we've got 1 inch 234 thousandths. 1 inch 234 thousandths. Let's see what we got on this side. 1 inch 1 inch 274 thousandths. So that's about 40 thousandths roughly difference. So this side is definitely thicker. So this side here, the ideal thing would be to take some off of this side. The problem with that is it's got these inserts in there, these metal inserts. Now I could take some off the metal insert too with a grinder or something. The insert is just barely below the surface, just barely. If we could take a little bit off of this, you know, a little bit off of here to nothing, that would straighten it out. I'm going to think on that a little bit here. I could probably do it with a sander, except for the fact that there's some finish that rolls up in here, and I would be taking off that finish too, and I hate to do that. Let me just see how that amounts to in here. Yeah, that could be a little problem. It might show up, but that might be easier to touch up that finish than it would be to do anything else. It's funny how it comes in and out of there real easy sometimes, and other times it's, if you drop it straight down, it's easy in and out, but if you pull it forward, it gets wedged in there. It's the bass side that's lower, so it's the treble side that needs some taken off of it. We might be able to do that on the belt sander. The problem with doing it is that you got to be very accurate, and just a little tilt this way or that way can change everything. I'm going to give it a little thought here and decide exactly how I'm going to try to approach this. I guess the fact that when we measure this and get 40 thousandths difference confirms, you know, what so many of you told me, I didn't even bother to look it up, is that about 40 thousandths is equal to about 1 millimeter, and that's what we were showing from one side to the other, was about 1 millimeter. So, you know, it's all checking out correctly. It's just now deciding how do I take off 1 millimeter basically to nothing is really what it amounts to. 40 thousandths to nothing. You know, I don't want to change the angle of the neck this way either, see? So it needs to be something that I can do that would be very accurate. That's the difficult part, is deciding how to make it accurate. I'm leaning towards some sort of a sanding process that would sand from 40 thousandths to nothing, but I need some way to hold it to get me my 40 thousandths. So that's what I'm thinking on right now, is how do I hold this square and flat to the sander to get, and this way to the sander, so that I don't take off too much off of this end versus this end, not too much off of this side versus this side, you know, all that kind of thing. So that's where I'm headed on my thought process. Well, here's what I came up with as a solution, and I don't know that it's the best solution, but it's what I came up with. I've glued 40 thousandths thickness on this side here, just a little tiny strip. On this side here, I put a magic marker line there, and then I took my calipers and scraped a 40 thousandths line that I need to remove. So I can hold these both against the sander. This side here, of course, I'm not going to be putting any pressure on, or not much pressure on it, and I'll be putting most of the pressure on here. And then I'm going to try to make it work out where when I get down to the 40 thousandths line here, I've removed all of the sand, this little strip that I have on here. By sanding it, that should take the top of this little ferrule off also and make it flush. It's just brass, or it appears to be brass, so that should work better than anything else I can think of. So I could sand the top of that off a little bit. It probably is only going to come off 20 thousandths, if that. So it's not much. But anyway, that's the best I can come up with. I am going to tell you something, and I hate to even tell you this because I feel like an idiot, but it happened. I got super glue in my eye. Now, how did I do that? I was working arm's length away pretty much down here on the table. The end of this little strip came up and it was loose. I put a little tiny bit of super glue on it, lifted it up like that so that the super glue could get underneath the strip. I let the strip slip. It splatted against there, and the teeniest drop of super glue flew at least a foot and went right in my eye. And it was teeny tiny amount, but I could feel it instantly, and I knew it was super glue instantly. And boy, I kept my eye moving so that it wouldn't stick. You know, I kept my eye batting like that so it wouldn't stick. And now I can feel it in there still. I don't know. I don't see it when I look in a mirror, so I'm just going to have to wait and let it see what happens. I'm sure it's a tiny drop, but man, I never thought about wearing safety glasses, just putting a little glue on something. I put new sandpaper on my sander here. I know that makes it much more aggressive, but it also, I feel like, will make it where I don't have to apply so much pressure, and should make it a little easier to control, I believe. I think that worked just about as close to perfect as something could possibly work. I hope it proves out that way when we get back to the bench. My air conditioner's running, sorry for that, but hopefully this is more visual than audio. I think you can see there, it's measuring real close to 8 millimeters at this point, and it's measuring very close to 8 millimeters here. I would say, you know, 1/10 of a millimeter off, if that. It's really close. So that's about as good as we're going to do. And let's see how the rest of it works together. Well, as I look down this fretboard, as I mentioned earlier, this one fret looks just a tiny bit low on this side. I can also see a slight, very slight, maybe underbow right in here. And it's very slight. Well, either way, doesn't matter. I would always level the fretboard anyway. So we're just going to go over it lightly and see where we're touching. I can feel it dragging a little bit right in here. You know, where I set it, I can feel it dragging right in here. There's still just a tiny bit of a high spot right in here. There, it kind of came out right there. I can feel it's still dragging right on the very end, but right in the middle there it came out, and you can just feel it glide. This edge of this fret here has barely been touched. This one's been filed quite a bit. So, you know, that tells you that that fret was a little low. I mean, yeah, it was a little low. I believe that's real good. We're going to recrown that now, clean it up a little bit, and we'll string this thing up and see where we're at on the action. I've already recrowned them. I'm just very lightly buffing them out with the 600 sandpaper just to get rid of any other additional scratches or anything, just to make them look real smooth. I don't put much pressure on it when I do this. It's just to polish them up a little bit, make them look a little shinier. The fretboard is actually pretty good, but I am still going to take a razor blade to it. There's a couple of dents in this area here, but they're minor. There's a pretty good sized dent that you can see. It shows up after you sand it. The sanding dust shows up those dents. There's a pretty good dent right in there, and a little one right in here.
Rosa is the father of bluegrass. He's the one that gave us all this joy. He picked up an old Gibson mandolin and formed a band called Bluegrass Boy.
I try to make them go just almost away, and then you know you're not taking off too much. Yeah, that's pretty close there. I'm going to call that good enough.
He's known far and wide for his picking, and we've all tried to copy his style. Well, now for those of you who like to hear it, here's old JR to give it a try.
This mandolin came to me unstrung, and so therefore I haven't heard it yet. My guess is, just from the construction of it, that it would probably benefit from the LS250 strings. The customer supplied the J74 Diodario, which I think are excellent strings. I'm going to go ahead and put those on there since that's what he supplied, but I, have a feeling that it's going to have a little bit of a thin sound. I could be wrong. I never, haven't heard it at all, so I don't know. So anyway, we're going to string it up and just see what the action looks like and see what we have to do to get that good. Once again, we have a very unique tailpiece on this. As you can see, there are only 4 hooks, which means you're going to have to double up your strings on the hooks. I think that's, if you're going to cut corners on something, that's probably not where you need to cut your corners. I think 8 hooks is much better. If you break a string or anything and need to do any unstringing, it sure is a lot better. So, anyway, it is what it is. We'll just we'll deal with it. I'm going to use that stringing technique where you wrap it around the post like this 1.5 times, and then you go back through, pull it up tight. And your string's already basically tight then, so you don't really need a string winder at all. I think I'm going to go ahead and put one on the E string side, because it's pulling off to the one side, and that'll help hold it in the center. I don't know why Diodario thought they needed to put these little tabs on here to hold these strings together, but in my opinion, that's a real pain in the neck. Don't feel like that's necessary at all. Just an extra step and a little pain. If you're dealing with this kind of thing all day long, that's just a real pain. On this side, I'm not going to use that same technique because I do like to lock the string under, and I think that's a better way to do it on these little tiny strings. So I use my old technique on the small strings. This takes a little bit more winding, but not too bad because I have a controlled amount of string there, so it's not too bad. Looking at the action overall, it looks pretty good, so I don't think we hurt the action much by changing that angle of the neck, and that's a good thing. We'll bring you back as we get her strung up. Well, I gotta tell you something. I think we have a significant problem. Not with the setup or anything I've done so far. Literally just putting the strings on, bring them up to pitch, and all of a sudden I heard something just crack. And I mean literally crack. I wish I would have had the camera on. It went like, like you could just hear crack, and then you could just feel something peeling. My thought is, a brace inside has either cracked and split or has pulled away from the top. One of the two. The top looks a little sunk in right here now. As far as I know, there's been no damage or nothing structural happened to the instrument that should have caused that, so I don't know what happened, but it doesn't sound good, and these strings went loose when that happened. I had them up to pitch, and you can tell now they were down at an F sharp. Yeah, it's not good. It was almost to pitch, and I was tightening this last little A string, and it went down. I am not looking forward to looking inside here because I just can't imagine it being good. It may be that this mandolin should have just had light strings on it and not these mediums. But the other problem is I don't have a mirror that's going to fit in here very well, I don't think. My lighted mirror I don't think is going to go in there. Not really, no. I just have this little mirror, and I can't get my hand in there to put the camera in there. See up in there at all, it's so dark. Wow, this is not one that you want to work on the inside, I can tell you. Well, the one brace I can see, I can't see anything wrong with it. I can only see a little piece of it. I just can't really see it, but something had to break. I'm just convinced something snapped, I think. And it does look like quite a bit of underbow in here now, where it was almost perfectly flat before. Bummer, bummer, bummer. Man, that is not good. I do not feel happy about that at all. And I'm pretty sure there's something wrong. I just don't know how to get in there to see it. Might be able to get a little wire on my camera and put it in here, so I guess that's what we'll try next. I've taken my lighted camera, I've gone inside there, wiggled it around as much as I can like this, and I don't see anything wrong at all. Wow. I just can't, I can't manipulate the camera very good, I gotta be honest, but I can see in there, and I can see the braces and things. I'm watching it on my little laptop screen here that you can't see at the moment, but I'll turn it around, and you can see here that you can see there's like a brace, and you can see what I'm seeing, kinda. There's a brace there. Anyway, I've been able to get down through there quite a bit with this camera, and I don't see anything wrong, which is good, but I can't explain why this top is so underbowed now and why I heard those weird noises. It sure sounded like something cracking to me. It could just be that I'm a little paranoid with these flat top mandolins. I've always felt like they're the weak link in in the instrument when you got a flat top like that on a mandolin with all that string pressure. I still am looking at it here and just trying to see if I can see anything. But boy, I don't see anything wrong. I guess we'll try doing a little bit more tuning and see what happens. I just don't know what the issue is. So I don't know. I'm a little nervous about it now. I'm going to leave the camera rolling here to see if anything shows up as we're tuning it up. Keep in mind, these strings were at pitch before. Well, it's at pitch. I didn't hear any more noises. Maybe it was just from being unstrung for a while. Maybe it was just the creaking going on, you know, kind of like an old wooden floor as it creaks. Maybe that's all it was, but boy, it sure did sound a lot worse than that. Especially when all the strings went loose, and especially about the time I started noticing that big sag. I don't think that sag was there before that noise. So, I don't know. Lightly tapping on it to just see if I hear or feel anything weird. Don't hear or feel anything weird. I will say the action now looks a lot worse than it did. The action's not impressing me now. It was pretty good. It's almost like the instrument folded up a little bit, because the action was pretty good, and now it's pretty high back here. Let's just see where it is. Here's the 80 and 90 thousandths. It's about 80 thousandths there on the G, roughly. It's about 80 thousandths there on the E. My standard test is I take this 1.14 millimeter purple pick here, and I put it at the 7th fret, and it's a little high there. I would say, you know, it's quite a bit high. It's going to fall right out. Let's see, on the 18 thousandths test up here at this end to see where it's at. It's real close there. A little bit, just a hair high on the bass side, but not much. It's about right, really. I wouldn't even probably change it, actually. It's so close. But it's quite high back here now. I think I'm going to just let it sit here and rest for an hour or so just to see what happens, and see if it kind of holds pitch or if it loses pitch, and we'll move on from there. I think you can see that on this Tacoma mandolin, first of all, it's been sitting in the shop here for several days, or not several days, but a day and a half at least. And I just wanted to see how much sag there was in the top. It's not terrible, but there is a sag there, flat top and everything. And if I'm going by millimeters, I'm saying between 1 and 2 millimeters, about 1.5 millimeters, which about a 1/16 of an inch in inches. So you know, it's sagged some, not terrible, but it is sagged. I mainly wanted to see if it was going to hold pitch, you know, after I heard that noise while stringing it up. It dropped pitch a little bit, but that's kind of to be expected. I've got it tuned back up to pitch. I'm going to let it set another 24 hours and just see where we're at. I just really want to make sure that that top is stable before I get into cutting this bridge down. The bridge definitely needs to be cut down. The action is fairly high up in here. It's, you know, if I'm going by my 7th fret deal that I always do, it's really high. It's I don't know, I couldn't tell you in thousandths, but it's, you know, this is a 1.14 millimeter, and certainly it doesn't catch in there. As a matter of fact, you probably have to go up to the 4th fret before it's just right. So it's quite high. So I'm going to let it set a little while longer just to see where we're at. This Tacoma mandolin has been sitting in the shop, hanging on the wall for several days. I would say about 4 days since I touched it last. I wanted to double check this top and make sure it's not really sinking. I believe it's at the same place it was. We're at about 1.5 millimeters, about roughly a 1/16 of an inch is what I'm calculating here. And roughly. So I think we're still where we were, so I think we can move on now. I just wanted to make sure that the top wasn't going to cave in on this thing, because it really did make a weird noise and do some things, and I don't know why it did that. It could be that maybe this neck pulled a little bit. Maybe we'll see if we can tighten that down a little bit. We'll loosen the strings and see if we can, because I do see kind of a little bit of a gap there. Maybe I just don't have it tight enough. I had it pretty snug, but maybe I need to tighten it just a hair more. So I'm going to loosen these strings pretty good and We'll see if we can tighten it just a little bit more and find the right wrench. I think that one's too big. I thought that was this one here. I know fits it. I think maybe that might have been part of the problem. That might not have been as tight as I thought it was. That does look like it closed it up a little bit more. Snugging it up pretty tight. I'm not going to go crazy with it, but I want to make sure we're where we want to be. Now I'm going to bring it back up to pitch. We're going to measure this at the 12th fret and decide how much we're going to cut off of this. The air conditioning's running and I just can't afford to shut it off as hot as it is. The nut up here is still pretty close to where I want it. It might be just a hair snug here. Well, actually, it would be fine if we knew we were at our final set here, but it might end up being a hair tight. I don't know for sure. Right now, it's just about perfect. So when I check it at the 7th fret with my normal pick, it's just a hair high. I would say we might be 10 thousandths high, maybe not quite that much. So we're going to measure here at the 12th fret and decide how much we're going to take off of this bridge. We're going to shoot for about 50 thousandths here at the 12th fret. I've already measured this and they both measure really close to about 90 thousandths. So this would be halfway between here and here. So you know, if we need to get this down to 50 from 90, that's 40 thousandths difference, and if you double that, we need to take about 80 thousandths off of this bridge. So we're going to take the bridge out, mark it at 80 thousandths, and take most of that off. We'll probably leave it a little bit proud, but we're going to take most of that 80 thousandths off of this bridge. You can see I've got my calipers set at 0. I'm going to bring it up to 80 thousandths. There's 79, so it's just a hair more. Can I get to 80? There's 82, there's 81, there's 80. I'm going to lock her down there at 80. And might as well turn it off then, save the battery. And now we've got a caliper set at that, and then I can scratch it along here. That leaves a nice mark that I can see good. I doubt you can see it on the camera, but and then I'm going to mark the other side too to help me keep it square. 80 thousandths is quite a bit, but it is quite high at present, so we need to take off quite a bit, but I'm going to probably leave the mark for sure, and you know, I don't want to take off more than I have to. This is how I'm planning to take the amount off of this bridge. That looks real good. It's right on the mark. I can still see the mark, but we took off quite a bit there, and we'll go forward and see how that fits. Well, I believe we hit a home run with this. I just checked the action, and actually it'll actually hold a pick past the 7th fret. It'll hold it back to the 10th fret, no problem. So it's much better than it was. Before, it wouldn't even hold it at the 7th fret. So it's very low action now. I've checked it all the way down the neck. That's a high D there. And it's getting it very clear. So it's working really good. The sound on it, you know, it's not my sound. It's not the kind of instrument that I'm into with the bluegrass, but it's a pretty cool instrument, really. Looks nice. It's plays so easy, I can't even tell you, without buzzing at all. It's actually set lower than I typically set them, but with this non-adjustable bridge, it's really hard to get that just right. So I'm glad I left. The mark. You know, if I'd have taken the mark out, boy, we would have been too low. But it's low, but it's not ridiculous. It's a good action. I'm going to let it set overnight, and assuming that everything's good, we're going to ship her out of here tomorrow. Thank you for watching.